Today I'm going to talk about the Tome of Magic for 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons by 6 different authors. That's always a trouble. So, let's take a look inside. So this is basically Unearthed Arcana 2nd edition. A bunch of stuff that's not needed, and just like 1st edition Unearthed Arcana, it's falling apart. Okay, so probably the most interesting thing in here is this idea of wild magic. This is sort of like the Wand of Wonder, in which magic becomes dangerous and unpredictable. Starting with this chart here, that when a wild mage casts a spell, you roll a d20 to determine what the actual caster level of it is, whether you cast it at a higher level than you are or a lower level. And if it shows up in bold print, then you get a wild surge. And see, they're not even all, it's not a particular number, it's randomized. So here's the wild surge results. Things like caster pivots 180 degrees, caster falls madly in love with target until remove curse is cast, a wall of fire encircles the caster, spell fails but is not wiped from caster's mind, caster and target exchange voices until remove curse is cast. Pretty interesting stuff, just like the Wand of Wonder. And there's more. Slow spell centered on target. Spell effectiveness, range, duration, area of effect, damage increases to 200%. So, the wild mages were a pretty interesting idea. Another idea for this is they already had specialist wizards, but this gave you elemental wizards. And you can bet nobody's going to play an elemental wizard unless they play a fire wizard. I saw this in Oriental Adventures, when the more interesting spells were in the nature and air spheres, but people always went for fire. And so there's a new rule for priests. They have this special spell called quest spells, which is more powerful than their 7th level spells, but it doesn't actually have a level. They just call it quest spells to make it different. And it goes into great detail. And there's some new priest spheres. Chaos, law, numbers, thought, time, travelers, war, wards. That's it. Okay, so there's some new wizard spells and some new priest spells. And so first we'll go through the wizard spells. Most of these I have not seen elsewhere. Some of them are special wild magic spells, like Hornung's Guess allows you to estimate the number of something. Like all 2nd edition stuff, there's some good art in this here. So Nahal's Request Wiomer. That's a 1st level spell and allows you to purposely trigger off a wild surge. There's some 2nd level spells like Chaos Shield, allows you to protect against wild surges. Let's see. Fool Speech. Makes it's sort of like speaking in tongues, but nobody can understand you. Okay, so this spell here, Wizard Sight, is the only thing in this entire book that I've seen carried on to later editions. I'm not sure why that is. There's a Summon Lycanthrope spell. This is a wild spell that I liked a lot called Dare Not Dare. in which you can make a 10 by 10 foot cube of material be there or not there, depending on the person. There's a 50% chance of being either way. So in play, the wild mage cast there, not there on a patch of floor, which made us a hole that we could, because it was not there for us, we could jump down there. And our pursuer, there was a 50% chance whether it could be there for him or not there for them. If it's there for him and not there for us, we could shoot spells up at through it while he's seeing a solid floor. But yeah, most of these spells not so interesting, so I don't want to go through all of them. But yeah, there's some pre-spells again. I don't recall seeing these carried over to later editions. One that allows you to create caltrops. And create campsite, invisibility purge. Sounds like a useful thing to protect against magical assassins, I guess. Unearthly Choir. This is an interesting one. And Thieves' Lament. Yeah, so lots of pages. I don't want to go through every one. Just want to show you the art because the spells are not that interesting. That's why they were not carried on to later editions. There's a whole section of the quest spells. You can create an animal horde, a circle of sun motes, an elemental swarm. You can walk on the ether. One of my players objected to this picture a lot because it seemed sexist to her. D&D art has had a lot of scantily clad people of both genders, and yeah, there's a lot more female ones, but you know, there's Conan-ish pictures too. And that they became less scantily clad in later editions, I think. Yeah, it's Robe of Healing, allow you to heal a bunch of people. Storm of Vengeance. And then after all these spells, then there's some new magic items. Again, I don't think I've seen any of these show up in later editions. So that's kind of useless, but yeah, some cool art. Let's skip ahead. All right, so in the back, you've got a list of all the wizard spells by school with the new ones in bold print. So that's helpful for you to find all the schools, including the elemental schools. So if you're going to be a fire elemental, the spells from your school are things like Burning Hands, Flaming Sphere, Fireball, Fire Charm, Fire Shield, Conjure Elemental, Meteor Swarm. And here's all the priest spells by sphere with the new ones in bold. Let's see, I think Astral was a sphere that pre-existed, but they only had 2 spells before. Let's add some more, so that's helpful. And there's a glossary. Let's say appendix it is. So, Tome of Magic. As I said, this is Unearthed Arcana 2, a book full of spells and magic items that weren't needed. The best thing I liked was the wild magic, which it must have caused problems for other people because it didn't show up in later editions.